Blessed momentums to you. Here we are with a new adventure. The book is entitled The Peacock and the Phoenix by Richard Shannon. A foreword. The peacock and the phoenix are the most fabulous of birds. One is a creature of reality, the other only a myth, yet together they represent a single vision which spans the whole being of man. The peacock represents the world as it appears before our eyes, while the phoenix represents the transformation of that world in love. Together they offer a complete enlightenment, worldly knowledge on one hand, and understanding on the other. They are the two sides of perception, vision, and awakening. I have used them to symbolize the double nature of self, which is at both born and dying, male and female, substance and vacuum. I have used the peacock to symbolize the beauty of the earth and all the happenings to us through our lives, and the phoenix to symbolize the constant change that is our being. The first is a male of great splendor, while the second is a female who rises from her own ashes, reborn in the act of dying. These birds have for thousands of years played an important role in mythology of mankind. They are birds which are rich in suggestions, and we have merely to see them in our mind's eye to conjure up the images of great sensuality and psychological meaning. The peacock, with its tail of 1,000 eyes, represents a vision of the wise man, the sage, who possesses the ability to see things from 1,000 different angles and to transcend any prejudice and single point of view. The peacock is a bird which possesses the ability to fly, yet prefers to stay on the ground, spreading its tail in glorious effulgence. It thus resembles the bodhisattva, who, although possessing the power to ascend directly into paradise, yet prefers to stay upon the earth, nourishing the minds of men until all things attained enlightenment. Hence it is said that the peacock is a bird of salvation and luminosity. The peacock has always been considered somewhat magical, and indeed many primitive people believe that the flesh of the peacock is a panacea for snake bites. Some even believe that the peacock was sent down from God to save the human race from the invasions of serpents. In fact, the peacock often does add young cobras to its diet, and this undoubtedly is the cause of such myth. Buddhist legend tells of a great peacock who came down from heaven to protect the Buddha as he sat alone in the forest. It spread its mighty fan around his body and frightened away all demons and vipers. It was thus showed its virtue as a protector of the gentle. Buddhism has, therefore, seen the peacock as a guardian of meditation, and there are many ancient scrolls of which shows the Arhat being swept into heaven on the backs of glorious peacocks. The ancient Romans saw the peacock as a bird of Juno, for whom the month of June was named. Perhaps they associate the brilliant plumage of that bird with the glorious foliages of summer, of which June is the first month. Juno was thought to be the most splendid of Roman goddesses. She was the queen of heaven and the wife of Jupiter, the supreme god. But whatever reverence they might have felt in their goddesses, it did not prevent them from considering her sacred bird as fit game for the table. Peacocks' tongues were one of the greatest delicacies of the Roman Empire. Early Christianity used the peacock to symbolize the incorruptibility of the flesh, believing that the annual renewal of its feathers promised a like resurrection for mankind. And even beyond that, the peacock was used as a symbol of the soul in union with God. The seraphim were shown with gorgeous wings, iridescent with the eye feathers of that beautiful bird. But Protestantism tended to reject the symbolism and was more inclined to see the peacock as Satan's merely disguised as an angel. The Puritans, in particular, condemning it was an it being an incarnation of all that sensuous and therefore sinful. They saw it as nothing but a symbol of vanity and pretension, and were quick to point out that they considered it to be the ugliestness of the defects, namely its harsh, peculiar whine, its awkward movements, and its hideous feet. They described it as having the sneaky gait of a thief and the voice of a demon. Indeed, it must have been such a feeling that these gave rise to the superstitions that peacock's feather bring bad luck to any who possess them. The opposite point of view would be expressed by William Blake, who quote, "The pride of the peacock is the glory of God," end of quote, which is really much the same as the old Tibetan saying, "Samsara is nirvana," meaning that this very world is also the joy of the spirit. To those who share this view, the peacock is a symbol of joyous living and exuberance and even ecstasy. In Persia, the peacock has always been a symbol of majesty, the royal splendor and its serene nobility. The famous peacock throne of the Gulistan Palace is known throughout the world, and its thousands of diamonds and emeralds makes it perhaps the most fabulous and valuable piece of furniture in the world today. More valuable still was the throne from which it was copied and from which many of its jewels have come, the glorious peacock throne of Shah Jahan, which once stood in the Red Fort of Delhi. This throne, now unfortunately destroyed and its jewels dispersed, was covered with a canopy of pearls. It stood half so beautiful that over its doorway was an inscription, "If there is a heaven on earth, it is here. It is here." End of quote. That the peacock should be occupied the center of this paradise is proof of how highly the Indians regarded it. In one part of India, it was even worshipped as God. In China, the peacock became a symbol of valor, and its feathers were awarded to those who had been of great service to the empire. It is related that in the Zhang Dynasty, defeated generals took refuge in a forest wherein there were many peacocks. When the pursuing army came to the spot, there where he was hidden, they noticed that the peacocks were undisturbed and concluded that he had not been anywhere near them. They abandoned the search, and the general was thus able to escape. Soon after, his fortunes began to change, so much so that he was able to ascend the throne as emperor of all China. Even though he became lord of the earth and all things were under his domain, he did not forget the beautiful peacocks whose serene composure had saved him from death. It was he who established the certain custom of bestowing a peacock feather as the highest of honors. A feather so acquired was considered to be far worthier than any substantial reward, either of money or possessions, for it was proof of virtue and intelligence. The peacock, as a symbol of intelligence, is a bird which has its female counterpart in the phoenix, a creature who represents the agility and resilience of perception. The phoenix is a bird which plays an important role in Egyptian and Chinese mythologies. According to the priests of the ancient Egyptian, the phoenix was the bird of immortality, the only creature on earth that possessed the ability to rise from its own ashes. It was a magical bird that came from the Isle of Fire far beyond the Red Sea in the blazing deserts of Arabia. Although in fact it did not live in the deserts, but rather in the beautiful green gardens along the Nile or in places where great sages were about to appear. Every 500 years it returned to the palace of its birth and built there its own funeral pyre. For this purpose it collected precious resins of frankincense and myrrh, and when it had been arranged them carefully into a bright and dazzling fire, it set down upon them as though they were its nest. The flames leapt heavenly forward, and it was quickly consumed. The fire then died down, and worm crawled out of the ashes. Immediately it burst forth into a full-grown phoenix whose body was whole again and rejuvenated. The phoenix then collected the ashes of its former self with great care, tenderly as though they were the bodies of its parents. It placed them in a ball of incense, which it took up in its beak, as it flew across the sea to the holy city of Heliopolis. There it buried them in the temple of the sun with ceremonies of great celebration. In this mythology of the phoenix was a bizarre bisexual creature and the manifestum of autumn, the great he-she, the one who created himself. It is therefore signified spontaneous generation and the mysterious aspect of creativity. Of such, it was also the bird of Osiris, the god who died with every harvest and was reborn with every spring. It was the personification of light, and it is related that in the beginning the phoenix alighted the sacred obelisk to initiate the great age of the visible God. It was itself the sunlight made living. It was a bird of fertility and renewal, and was a creature who delivered the message of life. According to the way it was portrayed in the ancient paintings, it looked something like the stork, and perhaps the modern fairy tale that storks delivered babies is the survival of ancient Egyptian beliefs concerning the phoenix. More of the ancient religions have passed down into our own beliefs and fancies that we realize the phoenix has remained through thousands of years a symbol of survival and rebirth. In Japan, the phoenix is thought to represent energy and wisdom, and like the peacock, it is a protector of those who are lost in meditation. It is a destroyer of untruth. In China, the phoenix is the symbol of femininity supreme, of the Empress herself, and the yin polarity which conquers by yielding and enlightens by receiving, which retains by releasing and endures by giving way. It is therefore associated with the bamboo and with the lotus, endurance and purity. And it is said that the phoenix is the bride of the utterly pure man, the sage who has gone off and become immortal. In the Taoist mythology, there are many stories of great men who have forsaken the corruption of this world and who have retired into the wilderness to practice their arts of meditation and reflection. Such men are utterly borne away on the wings of the great phoenix to the heaven of purple, clouds, and great visions. Quote, unquote. According to the Taoist belief that the Western paradise is separated from this world by immeasurable abyss whose depths are filled with raving monsters. Only those who ride on the back of the phoenix can soar over the chasm into the happiness of paradise. The phoenix, as a concept, has also appeared in early American mythologies, notably among the Aztecs, the Toltecs, and the Maya, where it appears in the guise of Quetzalcoatl, whose name means feathered serpent or bird snake, was thought to be a mystical link between heaven and earth. He symbolized the creative aspect of time, very much like the Egyptian Osiris. He was a fertility god and an incarnation of the sun, and it was he who first spread the arts of civilization among men. It is told that he took human form during the time of the Toltecs, after having been conceived miraculously by a virgin who had swallowed a piece of jade. Thereafter, he reigned among them as a priest-king and revelator. He brought much enlightenment and forbade human sacrifice. At last, he disappeared into the east, promising that he would return. When the phoenix appears, it is the omen of the great age to come, of scientists and seers, of artists and poets. It is also the omen of revolution, of fire, either destructive or creative. Yet in all things it symbolizes a fire that it promises the complete rebirth of mankind.